Good morning. I am Brian Carpenter, sports editor of the Meriden Record Journal, alongside, I must say, for the final time, and it's breaking my heart, and if I start to cry and bawl uncontrollably at this table, you might understand. Alongside for the last time, web producer Peter Paguagua, who is leaving us after this week. Alongside my rock over here on the right, Mr. Sean Crossick. Sean, don't go anywhere, man, or I will fall down and bawl at this table. Hey, folks, we're happy to be here together as a trio one last time to bring you this week in high school sports, because it was another good week here for us with girls basketball, boys basketball, hockey state tournaments. You were all over the place one more time. I'll give you that, Pete, man. You're hustling to the end. He's not slacking, dude.
On a high note, so.
You are not slacking. Sean, you were out and about tonight as well, and I like the new shirt and tie you got here.
In honor of Pete.
Beautiful.
In honor of Pete, of course.
I wore my red. Oh, I thought I was going to wear my Red Sox tie in honor of you,
I didn't
Pete,
even know I
but
had this tie. I saw it this morning, and I was like, oh, it matches the shirt, so I'm going to wear it.
it looks good.
Thank you.
You look sharp, and you got your haircut for today's show, too.
I did get my haircut for today's show.
Outstanding. Hey, folks, we're going to jump right in because Pete got some good clips for us here. And we're going to start at the head of the week, guys, over at Sheehan. Girls basketball, where we had that quarterfinal matchup in Class M between Sheehan and Career. They split the Hoosie title after splitting regular season games. Both games were close. Not so much this other time, huh?
No. Sheehan came out, and they are historically a slow-starting team this year, and they were able to withstand that. Despite only shooting 4 for 22 from the field in the first half, they were only down 3 points. They were only down 3. They were 9 for 9 from the line. They hung in there. And the second half, man, Career came out on fire. They had 5 3-pointers in the first 4 minutes of the second half. They went on a 20-6 run, and they left Sheehan in the dust, unfortunately. And it's a bummer to see them lose, but they get a good run, you know.
Absolutely, a memorable tournament for Sheehan. You will take those memories with you, will you not, Pete? Not one, but 2 buzzer-beating games.
I wasn't the one who got either of those buzzer beaters. Let's remember, Sean was the one who got those. I think you guys
That's
were in
right.
pretty good hands.
That's right. Yeah, the door's right there. I'll see you later.
I did like talking to you both after that one, though. The Bethel game was something. That was a great game, but a great way to sign off for the 3 seniors of Carolyn Beal, Lexi Ocasio, and Sydney Hunt. They definitely left on a high note for sure.
That's right. And tip of the cap to Liz Robles, who was an all-SEC first-team player, and our man Mike Basillo, who was SEC Coach of the Year.
Strong year.
Absolutely. So our girls' basketball teams are done. What a good season, though. Let's not forget we had 2 1,000-point scores on back-to-back nights. That was a beautiful highlight with Melanie Polanco and Jeanette Wadolowski. Guys, we're going to be shooting our All-Record Journal girls' basketball team on Sunday. So will those girls be here? Who else will be here? We're going to be unveiling our All-Record Journal teams one by one over the next 4 weeks. Pete's going off on a strong note. Girls basketball, I think, might be the first one up on deck. We shall see. In the meantime, we got boys basketball teams still alive. We're shooting this on Friday night, and Pete and Shawnee were at games tonight. Pete, you saw both of them.
Yeah.
You saw Southington jump all over North Haven early. We're going to start with Wilcox, though, because, hey, Wilcox Tech beats Griswold, and they're in the quarterfinals in boys basketball for the first time since 1982. Yeah. I was trying to come up with a pun.
1982?
1982, I was trying to come up with a pun.
I don't even remember that.
Nor do you. Admit it, Sean, right?
I was one. So.
I was trying to come up with a pun on Reaganomics, 1982. Farcasnomics doesn't work. Tribonomics.
You know what's amazing about that Wilcox team? They ran 6 guys the whole game. You know, it looked like they kind of hit a little bit of a lull, but they really picked it up then. I think they were down 6 in the fourth quarter.
They were down 7. With 4.5 to go. Yeah.
Looking dire, and yet Wilcox, they come up big. John Soder, right, had 2 consecutive buckets and put him ahead.
He did, yeah. Nick Millslegel got a nice bounce pass right to him. They went ahead 53-51. Yeah. They ended that game on a 20-3 run.
Yeah, that was wild. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, man, they're going to lose. Like, why did I stay? No, but
Pete
and then they started filming that. And the 2 Soto buckets were huge, but big ups, big shout out to Will Pollock, who John Soto hit the and-1, misses the free throw. Yeah. Will grabs the board, puts it back up, and all of a sudden I think it was like a 4-point swing in that turn. I think they were down 7. John hits the bucket, gets fouled, missed the free throw, Will, and all of a sudden it's a 4-point swing. Yeah. They're in it, and then John hits the last 2 buckets. It was a wild finish. And in that gym, mean, all Tech gyms are the same. I've complained about this before. They're small. You're right on top of it, but an atmosphere like that was wild tonight. That was really crazy. The fans were going crazy. They're basically on the floor.
Yeah.
They were clapping, going crazy. So it was very cool atmosphere.
Yeah, and not to dismiss DJ Ransom. Yeah, 25 points, another strong game for him.
Just a quiet 25 points.
Yeah.
Kid's unbelievable.
He really is.
Should we put him on our all-record journal team?
Maybe.
We'll have to think about that one, too. Hey, you mentioned, I'm going to sidetrack, Pete. If you want to lop all this out, feel free. But because you're from Long Island, I'm going to mention it. You mentioned the Tech gyms and that close atmosphere. Bridgehampton, Long Island. You familiar with the Killer Bees? They have a home gym that's actually so small, the three-point arc goes out of bounds before it hits the baseline.
Really?
You want to talk about someone playing in their living room. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It was those gyms were
Just pulse with energy.
Yeah.
But here's the thing now. Wilcox is going to play in the quarterfinals on Monday against SMSA, and that game might get moved to Platt, and it probably will for capacity reasons.
Yeah,
but,
I think it has to.
But you lose a little mojo.
Yeah, it's the same city. I mean, it's legitimately down the block.
It's down the street.
It's
All
really
right,
not
okay.
that far, so.
I asked a couple of guys about it, and they were a little bummed. They wanted to play, but Coach told them it's most likely the possibility. The last few times they've been in the States, it's happened.
No, look, it makes sense. I mean, there were kids from Maloney there. There were kids. Yeah, there were kids.
Nice.
Mitch McEwen was there. Shout out Mitch McEwen. He was there. A couple other
way to
Maloney
support
guys.
your
So,
city
like, yeah, like
brothers.
a
Absolutely,
lot. It's not
man.
just the Wilcox kids who were there. It's the other schools who were there too. So they'll still show up if the game gets moved to Platt.
Yep.
And maybe some of those Wilcox Tech kids could smile because it's amazing. None of them smiled. Like, I don't know what it is, and maybe it's,
they're all business,
no
man.
fear, all business, but none of these kids smile. It's amazing. Good for them.
They should smile because they got a lot to smile.
Yeah, exactly. I remember after the game, like, Sean, they just came back. It was a great game. None of them they're just like, all right, like, on to the next one.
They're not satisfied.
Yeah.
That's right. The job's not over. Tribonomics.
Yeah.
1982, man. Kicking it like it's 1982. What's that Man the Portugal song or Portugal the Man? I don't know, dude. I'm passe. All right. So, hey, also tonight, Pete, you started your night over in Southington, where here's the Blue Knights, number 7 seed in Division III. We're expecting them to make a little noise. Then they open with Berlin, and you got highlights from that game as well. See?
That game did not start well for Southern.
Amazing. They go down 10-zip, and they're struggling against Berlin, a number 26
And Berlin
seed.
came out hot. They were loud. They were excited. They were hitting every three. There was a kid blocked, I think, low nice into like the second row behind the bench. Like, Berlin was popping. They were excited. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden, Southington got going. They pulled it off in overtime.
So they struggled in that first round game. Then tonight, second round against a number 10 seed in North Haven. All right, not the. Yeah, they jumped all over them. Boom, 20 points at halftime.
Andrew Lownice was amazing.
What do you say? Low key, nice at basketball. Or
Honestly,
something like that?
speaking of low key, Andrew Lownice might be the best player in the state of Connecticut that nobody's talking about. He does everything. First drive down for North Haven, block. Next possession, 3-pointer. Next possession, 3-pointer. Next possession, another basket. I think he scored the first 8 points. He had 14 and a half. He's the catalyst for that team. Everything goes through him, and they will go as far as he takes them.
Well, Lownice had 28 tonight, and the final against North Haven was 64-48, and I don't think the game was even that close. Really, it was 35-15 at halftime.
Yep.
They gave up 15 points. That's what defense does. So, hey, they're right back at it tonight as you're watching this, folks. Saturday night, they got to go down to Waterford.
Yeah.
Waterford also played. Waterford's the number 2 seed.
Oh.
So Southington's got to pull the upset now to advance to the semis. But, hey, we don't often get Southington boys basketball in the state quarterfinals.
That's
a good
wild.
club.
Good for them.
All righty. Listen, folks, we're going to take a little halftime break here. We're going to bring you a word from our presenting sponsor, Gaylord Specialty Healthcare, and we'll come back. We'll talk a little frozen pond, Peter. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Gaylord Specialty Healthcare. Glad to have you folks aboard for the ride this week in high school sports. And this week was all about not only basketball, but Peter, hockey. Hockey, we had Division II, Division III tournaments started. Hey, we had 4 teams in at the beginning, and here we are at the end of the week, and they're all gone.
Yeah,
It's all over,
gone.
man.
Yeah.
Which deprives us of some cool highlights from Ingalls Rink, which is the greatest for atmosphere.
That is true, and I think we had high hopes this year for our 4 hockey teams. And don't get me wrong, they didn't disappoint. They all 4 had their moments during the year where they were incredible to watch. But I think they all just kind of hit weird spots at the year. I mean, we're starting D3.
Yeah.
Lyman Hall, they won their first game against Norwalk McMahon this week. They ran into a really good Tri-Town team. We're actually winning 1-0 last night, Thursday night, and then before falling. But I mean, at one point, Lyman Hall was the best team in Division III.
When they beat Staples, man,
Yeah.
everybody's saying
I mean, it was
Lyman
so
Hall and
convincing, and I guess they just peaked a little too early. I mean, hats off Scott Bradley, Kyle Roberts, TJ, the TJs, because I don't know how to pronounce either of their last names. Andrew Sacco. I mean, that team, Josh Martinez. I mean, that team and Richie, friend of the program. Great coach, and obviously this season ended a little bit sooner than they wanted to, but disappointing for them, obviously. And then Sheehan.
Same thing with
win.
Sheehan.
They had the big opening win against Hand, who I think they played for the 3rd time this year,
15th,
second in a row.
15th, actually, I think.
Yeah, oh my God, I've seen Hand for Sheehan way too much this year. But they had a great opening game. Anthony Romano with 4 goals. And Anthony Romano usually is the one who's dishing them out. He buried 4 in the opener. Nick Gonsalves continues to score for them in the opener. They played well against a Hand team. You play a team 3 times, it's that old boring sports cliche, but you can't beat a team 3 times,
Well, they did, but then they go up against Eastern Connecticut, which is
to a good
their
Eastern
nemesis
team
this
who
year.
they lost to. In a really good game at Conn College earlier this year. That was 2-1 with the empty net, 3-1. And even this week, Thursday night, it was 2-0. And they netted the empty netter with like a minute and a half left, and they lost 3-0. But Sheehan had their chances. They just couldn't capitalize. To be honest, Joe and I were talking to the press box. Like, when they got on the ice, Sheehan was flying, and Eastern was kind of looked a little sluggish. And maybe it was a long drive with the snow, and it was.
That's right, because Eastern Connecticut come all the way to Northford.
It was like 5 different schools, Fitch, and all these. They came all the way down to Northford for the neutral site game for Sheehan, and Eastern came out and they just looked sluggish. And Joe was like, I think Sheehan could, if they get going early.
And they didn't, though.
And they just couldn't, and they had chances, but Eastern made the stops and got the opportune goals. And Eastern's not a bad team, so. It was a good run for Sheehan. Again, Sheehan and Lyman Hall, I think we were both hoping at the beginning. We were all hoping at the beginning of the year that we might be seeing them in Ingalls. Regardless of ranking going into the tournament, we all thought that they had a chance to make it. Obviously, it didn't happen. Hats off, to the Sheehan seniors, Sicarelli, Gonzalez, Coach Festa. And they have a lot of guys coming back.
That's true of both those teams.
Yeah.
Both Wallingford-based schools will be good again next year. Hey,
Yeah.
Sheehan, 19-5, and they were SEC, SWC Division III champs. Festa was Coach of the Year, and Bradley from Lyman Hall, Skater of the Year.
We have some unbelievable hockey players between the Wallingfords. On the ice, but off the ice, they're fun, good kids. Sad to see it end this way.
You should plug the video you did with Joe Boyle, because if folks you haven't seen the video Joe Boyle did with Pete down at Northford with some of the Lyman Hall guys and Kyle Roberts from Coggins. That's definitely worth.
Oh my God!
My favorite line is when Joe says, "They're smart kids." Totally flummoxed and baffled. I love it, Joe. You're willing to be the foil. Hey, Joe, I want to just give a good little shout out, correct?
Shout out.
I want to make sure I got my lingo right. Joe, shout out. As always, good hockey coverage from Joe. He loves it, absolutely loves it, and it shows in his coverage. He's doing season wraps, man. He was all over. Yeah, he sent me another one like 2 minutes ago. It was like 10 o'clock on a Friday. He's got one more to write about Hall Southington, which lost to Connor 2-1 in its first round game. Cheshire also in Division II. They lost to Amity 4-1.
A lot different than the first time that the two met.
Yeah,
We had
overtime.
we had them on this show. The first time they met, it was 4-4 overtime tie. Where they actually should have won. They allowed a goal with under a minute left to send the game to overtime. But this week, this time around, it was all Amity. They really were. They were the better team, And, I mean, I think Joe said it in a story. I mean, Cheshire outshot them and lost by 30. They just couldn't figure out. They couldn't, it wasn't a goal drought because it lasted the entire season.
Yeah, they started 3-0, and then suddenly the goals were just
Spares.
just hard to come by.
Yeah.
And it's not that they didn't have chances. They did. They usually outshot opponents.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
Cole for Amity played unbelievable. He made a ton of saves. Cheshire was on the power play a lot, and the kid stood on his head. They played well. It was a very deserving win by Amity. They were just the better team that day. But, you look at the shots, and Cheshire outshot them, and it's like, what a surprise. They outshot them, and they lost again. It just something that they couldn't get over this year. So it's kind of sad to see. But another great, that and the Hall Southington kids, too. I mean, just a great season overall.
Guys, what would you say about that game, since you guys were there at that game? That, of course, a rematch with Connard, just coming so shortly after Drew Booth's injury. The kid who hit him from behind sat himself on his own volition, I understand, took himself out of the game, which is a good gesture to just kind of make sure there's no repercussions or bad blood spilling over. I'll be honest, I figured so often when things like that happen in sports, that rematch game tends to be kind of a quiet affair. Would you say for a playoff game it lacked a lot of oomph? I mean, they moved the game to a 1 o'clock start.
I don't know if that had to do with the weather or
No,
not having the
clearly
students
didn't.
there,
I
but
think the latter.
I mean, it was a great game. I mean, Sean, you were there.
Yeah, you called it, Bri. He said, it might just be a ho-hum regular game, and both teams were under their best behavior. There was only one charged penalty the entire
That's right,
game.
one penalty.
And it was pretty remarkable. I talked to Southington and their goalie, Zach, after the game. This team is emotionally drained after these last 2 weeks.
Can't blame them.
Yeah, and they didn't practice the previous 2 days before that. Coach just wanted to give them a break, and they scored the first goal right off the bat. It was Mike DiPietro scored first 5 minutes in, and it seemed to be cooking for Southington. And then all of a sudden, the equalizer, a minute and a half later by Brian Carson, and that's Shea Henderson for Connor, just one heck of a goalie.
Yeah, they're going. Yeah. They clinched their spot. They're going to the semis.
Yeah.
So they won tonight, and they're going to Ingalls.
Yeah.
So it's a good team. I mean, they didn't lose. Hall Southington didn't lose to a bad. They lost to a very good team. And it's a sad way to see our 4 teams. And this year none of them going to Ingalls, but there's a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, they all qualified for the postseason. Either 500 or better, at least going into the postseason. And again, mentioning Bradley as the SEC Division III Skater of the Year, Dave Festa as the SEC Coach of the Year, Division III. That's a pretty good hockey season all around. And on that note, I've got to say it's been a real good run all around with this guy here, Pete. And what a pleasure working with this guy. Talk about going the extra mile, huh?
Great guy.
And occasionally even dresses nice. No, really, we're going to miss Pete. He's a lot of fun to work with. We wish him well at game time. Of course, we hate game time for taking him away from us, but I don't blame him. You want the best, you go get the best. Pete, you're a good one. It's been a pleasure, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, guys.
Thanks. Great job.
All right, now I'm going to break down and start bawling at this table. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in to This Week in High School Sports. For the next 4 weeks, we want you to tune in each Saturday to see who our All-Record Journal girls, boys basketball, wrestling, and hockey teams are for the winter 2017-18 season. I'm Brian Carpenter, sports editor of the Record Journal, alongside Shawnee Krofsick, Mr. Peter Bagwaga. Thank you for tuning in to This Week in High School Sports, brought to you by Gaylord Specialty Healthcare.